Hey, this is Ted Cantu coming at you with HotMitchaFinds.com, and we're looking at the Battle of the Five Armies. This is the last of the Hobbit series, and the question is, did they go too far in the digital realm with all of the CGI and special effects? Was it too over the top? You know, I'm a huge Tolkien fan, and this goes way back to when I was a kid. I watched the cartoons a long time ago, back in the 70s, and I read all the books. I remember the Lord of the Rings movie with Ralph Bakshi back in '79. Really cool stuff. And this is a huge, huge mythology. It's a huge series. So to tell it in its grand scope of whatever it is, you really need all of that stuff in there. All of the armies and all of the special effects and amazing detail. And really, I do believe that these two films could have been condensed. Actually, three films could have been condensed to two films because it was really long. I went to the marathon at AMC, at the IMAX. It was a very, very long day. I was in there for like 9 hours watching these movies, and I was ready to walk out after the first two because it was just too much. But in all fairness, this third installment is actually pretty good. And I understand that the estate of J.R.R. Tolkien is putting the kibosh on any more future films, which is maybe a good thing. Unlike the Spiderman series, which has to keep reinventing itself every 5 years, with basically telling the same story. I'm actually bored with that whole franchise, and I prefer this one much better because it was done better in a lot of ways. But I would like to see the Silmarillion come to the big screen. That would be really, really amazing. And I think that would kind of cap off the whole experience. And who knows what's going to happen in the future. But I know Peter Jackson basically is, the director, is he's all done as far as this goes. And I'm hoping that this series stands as the definitive version of Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, and that nobody else takes it over. There's really no reason to, because they've really gone through a lot of detail in this. There's some extra characters in here that are kind of interesting. The Pale Orc, everyone's talking about that. He's a central theme bad guy, and he's only mentioned a few times in the series and the books. And then, of course, there's some other minor characters too, like Alfred, who's pretty funny, and Radagast, who's another wizard, who is a minor character in the series. But these people are actually kind of brought in to kind of fill out the scope of the story and also, I don't know, bring us into more human emotion. Anyway, I know people have very different, diverse ideas on what this series means to them, and it's pretty interesting. So I'm glad to finally see it brought to the big screen. It feels a big relief to finally see it happen, but I think they did a fairly good job with it, and it's definitely worth seeing. So the question was, is this too much CGI in the film? I say yes, it is. But how else could you effectively tell this story? And it's got to be, in so many ways, a bit too much at times. And the action sequences throughout the trilogy can be defined as over the top and too much. But overall, I do think it was justified. And the CGI was much more forgivable in this last installment than it was in the other films. Now, the camera moved along with the action in the charging scenes between the elves versus the orcs. And there was a reason for all this digital wizardry. It wasn't just some random thing. And you're also looking at very strong supernatural forces at work in this movie, so those things had to be illustrated, and I don't think it was really over the top, and I think Tolkien would have approved, even though in his lifetime he was known as being a very eccentric person, and I think he would have approved of this series. So overall, it's a very fantastic and celebrated effort. Do go check it out. It's definitely worth your time, and it's actually better than the Part 2 installment, which went a little over the top with their own digital effects. Now that one, Desolation and Smog, I do have a personal problem with because some of those scenes are really embellished and they were very grandiose, especially towards the end. The last 40 minutes, oh man, gave me a headache. But you won't find that in this one. And the time goes by very, very quickly, actually. And the film has excellent pace. Very, very good movie. So, anyway, that's my thoughts. Those are my notes. You can check this out over at the new art section over on hotmitchellfinds.com. And we've also have different reviews there for a couple of other films. Dumb and Dumber, I think, is on there. And we're looking at, of course, the year's recap of the best shows from Riot Fest to Oktoberfest, the Rocktoberfest, excuse me, in Chicago that we did with Slaughter and the Dogs and Agent Orange. So, very cool stuff. Do check it out. I'm Ted Cantu, and I'll see you online.